What if the secret to unbreakable peace isn't in escaping your problems, but in changing how you see them? 2,000 years ago, emperors and slaves discovered a mental fortress that no tragedy could breach. Today, we unlock 10 Stoic lessons that will change your mind and your life forever. The story of Stoicism does not begin in a quiet library or a grand university. It begins in a nightmare. Imagine the Mediterranean Sea, churning violently under a blackened sky. It is the 4th century BC. A wealthy Phoenician merchant named Zeno of Citium is on board a ship carrying his life's work, a fortune in rare Tyrian purple dye. The wind howls, the hull splinters, and in a matter of terrifying minutes, the ship goes down. Zeno survives, washing up on the shores of Piraeus, Greece, coughing up seawater and shivering in the cold. He has lost everything: his wealth, his status, his future, all swallowed by the indifferent sea. Wandering into Athens as a ruined man, Zeno collapses in a small bookshop. He picks up a text about Socrates and is immediately captivated by the philosopher's unshakable calm in the face of adversity. He asks the bookseller where he can find a man like this. In that moment, Zeno stopped being a merchant and became a philosopher. He would later say, "I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered shipwreck." From the wreckage of Zeno's life, Stoicism was born. It is a philosophy not for the faint of heart, but for those who recognize that the world is chaotic, unpredictable, and often cruel. To survive it, we must build a fortress in the only place we truly control: our own minds. Lesson 1. The dichotomy of control, the separation of worlds. The first and most foundational lesson of Stoicism comes to us not from a merchant, but from a slave. His name was Epictetus. Born into chains in the 1st century AD, Epictetus served a cruel and wealthy master named Epaphroditus, an administrative secretary to the mad Emperor Nero. Epictetus lived a life where he had no bodily autonomy, no rights, and no possessions. Yet he became one of the freest men in the Roman Empire. Legend has it that one day, his master, in a fit of sadistic rage, began to twist Epictetus's leg in a torture device. Epictetus didn't scream. He didn't beg. He looked at his master calmly and said, "You will break my leg." The master twisted harder until the bone snapped with a sickening crack. Epictetus didn't weep. He simply looked at the shattered limb and said, "Did I not tell you it would break?" Epictetus was left crippled for the rest of his life, but from this profound suffering, he distilled the core essence of Stoic power: the dichotomy of control. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. Epictetus, to change your mind forever, you must draw a ruthless, impenetrable line down the center of your life. On one side is what you cannot control: the economy, the weather, what other people think of you, how you were raised, traffic, disease, and the inevitability of death. On the other side is what you can control: your choices, your words, your reactions, your judgments, and your character. We experience anxiety, anger, and despair because we constantly bleed our energy into the side of the line we do not control. We rage at the traffic as if our anger will move the cars. We obsess over what a co-worker thinks of us as if we can reach into their brain and rewire their neurons. The Stoic realizes that this is a form of madness. Imagine an archer. The archer can control the tension of the bow, the sharpness of the arrow, their breathing, and their focus. But the moment the arrow leaves the string, it is gone. A sudden gust of wind, a sudden movement by the target, these are out of the archer's control. The Stoic archer ties their self-worth not to hitting the bullseye, but to having shot a beautiful, technically perfect shot. When you stop trying to control the wind and start focusing only on your bow, a profound stillness enters your life. You become untouchable. Lesson 2. Amor fati. Love your fate. Understanding what you can control is the first step. But Stoicism asks something even more radical of us. It is not enough to simply tolerate the things you cannot control. You must learn to love them. This is the concept of amor fati, a love of one's fate. Fast forward from ancient Rome to December 1914, West Orange, New Jersey. Thomas Edison, the great inventor, is 67 years old. One evening, a massive explosion rocks his legendary laboratory complex. Chemical fires, fueled by highly combustible compounds, burn so fiercely that the local fire departments are completely powerless. The sky turns a terrifying green and yellow as 10 massive buildings are consumed by a roaring inferno. Everything Edison has worked for, years of prototypes, records, millions of dollars in uninsured equipment, is turning to ash. His son, Charles, runs frantically through the chaos, looking for his father. He finds Edison standing near the raging fire, his face glowing in the intense heat, his white hair blowing in the winter wind. Edison is not crying. He is not tearing his hair out. Instead, he turns to his son and says, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They will never see a fire like this again." The next morning, surveying the smoldering ruins of his life's work, Edison reportedly said, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." Edison was not a recognized Stoic, but in that moment, he embodied amor fati. The Stoic philosopher Chrysippus used the metaphor of a dog tied to a moving cart. The cart represents the inescapable momentum of fate. The dog has two choices. It can fight the cart, digging its paws into the dirt, whimpering, and being dragged violently along the road, skinning its knees and suffering the whole way. Or the dog can trot happily alongside the cart, enjoying the scenery, choosing to align its will with the direction it was inevitably going anyway. Amor fati means choosing to trot alongside the cart. Life will hand you terrible things. You will lose jobs. You will get your heart broken. You will experience illness. And you will lose people you love. The instinctive human reaction is to yell, "Why me? This isn't fair." But the universe does not care about what is fair. It operates according to its own grand design. When you embrace amor fati, you stop viewing adversity as a disruption to your life and start viewing it as the substance of your life. Every challenge becomes an ingredient in the recipe of your character. A flight delay isn't a ruined afternoon. It is a sudden gift of 2 hours to read a book. A difficult boss isn't a curse. They are a free, daily masterclass in patience and emotional regulation. To love your fate is to look at every single event that happens to you and say, "I didn't choose this, but I will use this." If Part 1 taught us how to construct the walls of our mental fortress by separating what we control and loving our fate, Part 2 teaches us how to forge the armor we wear within those walls. This armor is made of perspective, and it is forged in the fires of life's harshest realities. The ancient world was dangerous. Disease was rampant. Wars were frequent, and a simple fever could end your life in days. The Stoics did not hide from these grim realities. They stared directly into them, using them to clarify their minds. Lesson 3. Memento mori. Remember you must die. Imagine the streets of ancient Rome during a triumph, the highest honor an emperor or general could receive. The streets are packed with hundreds of thousands of cheering citizens. Rose petals fall from the balconies. The victorious general rides in a magnificent 4-horse chariot, draped in a purple and gold toga, his face painted red like the god Jupiter. The spoils of war are paraded before him. Exotic animals, conquered kings in chains, chests overflowing with gold. In this moment, the general is a living god. He is the most powerful man on the face of the earth. But standing directly behind him in the chariot is a slave. The slave has only one job. Amidst the deafening roar of the crowd, the slave holds a golden crown over the general's head and whispers continuously in his ear, "Respice poste, hominem te memento mori." Look behind you. Remember you are a man. Remember you must die. This was not meant to ruin the general's good time. It was a profound psychological anchor, designed to prevent the arrogance and hubris that destroy great men. It was a stark reminder that no matter how much glory, wealth, or power one accumulates, the great equalizer is always waiting. Memento mori is perhaps the most life-changing shift in perspective Stoicism offers. Today, we hide from death. We use anti-aging creams, we put our dying away in sterile hospitals, and we refuse to talk about the end. The Stoics believed this avoidance is precisely why we waste so much of our lives. Seneca, a statesman, playwright, and Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about the shortness of life. He observed that humans are incredibly stingy with their money, guarding their property with fierce vigilance. Yet, when it comes to the only truly non-renewable resource we have, our time, we hand it out to anyone and anything. We waste hours scrolling mindlessly. We stay in toxic relationships for years. We hold on to petty grudges, and we put off our true passions until tomorrow. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. Seneca. Seneca pointed out a terrifying flaw in human logic. We think of death as a static event, waiting for us at the end of the road. But the Stoic understands that death is happening right now. The time that passed while you were reading the last paragraph, that time belongs to death. Your youth? It belongs to death. Yesterday? Death has it. You are dying every single day. When you internalize memento mori, it is not depressing. It is wildly liberating. It is a filter that burns away all the trivial nonsense in your life. When you remember that you are a mortal who could leave this life right now, suddenly, arguing with a stranger on the internet seems absurd. Holding a grudge against your parents seems like a tragic waste of breath. Doubting yourself and fearing failure loses its sting, because soon, you and everyone who ever judged you will be dust anyway. To change your mind forever, you must keep death ever present. Let it sit on your shoulder. Before you react in anger, before you choose to procrastinate, before you let fear stop you from speaking your truth, let death whisper in your ear. Remember, you are mortal. Do not waste this. Lesson 4. The obstacle is the way. If memento mori teaches us how to value our time, our next lesson teaches us how to use our suffering. Let us travel to the freezing, mud-soaked battlefields of Germania in the 2nd century AD. The Roman Empire is fighting a brutal, exhausting war against barbarian tribes. At the head of this army is Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, and a devout Stoic. He is plagued by failing health, coughing in his tent by candlelight. His empire is dealing with the Antonine plague, which is wiping out millions. The treasury is depleted. And then, the unthinkable happens. Word reaches Marcus that Avidius Cassius, one of his most trusted generals and a close friend, has declared himself emperor in the East, staging a massive rebellion. Cassius has stolen provinces, armies, and resources. The normal reaction for a Roman emperor facing betrayal is immediate, brutal vengeance. Purges, executions, and the slaughter of the betrayer's family were standard practice. But Marcus Aurelius was not a normal emperor. He did not fly into a rage. Instead, he saw this horrific betrayal as a unique opportunity. Marcus gathered his troops and gave a speech. He told them they would march to meet Cassius, but not to slaughter him. Instead, Marcus declared his intention to capture Cassius alive, forgive him in front of the whole world, and show that a true Roman leader operates out of virtue, not vengeance. Marcus Aurelius took the ultimate obstacle, a treasonous civil war, and used it as a platform to demonstrate unparalleled grace and philosophical strength. He wrote in his private journal, which we now know as Meditations, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is, the obstacle is the way. We all face roadblocks. You get fired from your job, your business fails, you get injured and can't play the sport you love. The default human setting is to see these obstacles as massive, impenetrable brick walls that stop our progress. Stoicism flips this geometry entirely. The Stoic realizes that the obstacle is not a wall, it is a bridge. It is not stopping your progress. It is redirecting your progress to a better path. Imagine a fire. If you throw a small pile of dry leaves onto a tiny candle, the flame will be snuffed out. But if you throw a pile of logs, dirt, and debris onto a raging bonfire, the fire doesn't go out. It consumes the obstacles. It burns hotter, brighter, and higher because of what was thrown into it. When you adopt the mindset that the obstacle is the way, you become an unstoppable force. The malicious rumor spread about you. It is an opportunity to practice Stoic silence and prove them wrong through your actions. The sudden job loss? It is an opportunity to pivot into a career you actually care about, or to test your resilience in lean times. The physical illness. It is an opportunity to cultivate a fierce inner strength when the outer shell is failing. Every time life throws a rock in your path, you have a choice. You can curse the rock, stub your toe on it, and stop walking. Or you can step onto the rock and use it to see further down the road than you ever could before. The Stoic does not simply survive adversity. The Stoic requires adversity to thrive. Without the resistance of the barbell, the muscle cannot grow. Without the friction of the wind, the airplane cannot lift off. Without the obstacle, you cannot discover who you truly are. We have built the walls of our fortress, separating what we can control from what we cannot. We have forged our armor in the fires of mortality and adversity. But a fortress is only as strong as the ruler who governs within it. In Part 3, we turn our gaze inward. The Stoics understood that the greatest empire a human being can conquer is the empire of their own mind. To rule this inner domain, we must master how we relate to the external world, specifically the people who infuriate us and the comforts that secretly enslave us. Lesson 5. Sympatheia. The interconnectedness of all things. It is the year 170 AD. The dawn is breaking over the freezing, fog-drenched forests of the Danubian frontier. Inside a sparsely furnished military tent, Emperor Marcus Aurelius sits at a small wooden desk. He is exhausted. He is surrounded by political sycophants who flatter him to his face and scheme against him in the shadows. He has to deal with incompetent generals, greedy merchants, and citizens who complain endlessly despite his tireless efforts to protect them. The Emperor of Rome has every right to be a misanthrope. With a single word, he could have the annoying, the treacherous, and the incompetent executed. Yet, instead of calling for the executioner, Marcus dips his reed pen into the inkwell and writes a command to himself. Begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. He did not write this to fuel his anger. He wrote it to inoculate himself against it. Marcus Aurelius was practicing one of the most profound and difficult tenets of Stoicism, sympatheia. Sympatheia is the Stoic belief in the mutual interdependence of the whole universe. It is the realization that the cosmos is a single, massive living organism, and every human being is a vital cell within that body. Marcus reasoned that human beings were designed by nature to work together, just like the upper and lower rows of teeth, or the left and right hands. When the lower teeth grind against the upper teeth, it is painful, but they are still part of the same jaw. When a fellow human being lies to you, betrays you, or cuts you off in traffic, the instinctive reaction is furious tribalism. We want to destroy them. We view them as the enemy. The Stoic views them entirely differently. The Stoic sees the cruel, the selfish, and the ignorant not as evil monsters, but as sick, blind people. Socrates, the intellectual grandfather of Stoicism, argued that no one does evil willingly. People do bad things because they are confused about what is truly good. The man who steals from you thinks wealth will make him happy. The person who gossips about you thinks bringing you down will elevate their own status. They are operating under a tragic delusion. They are morally sick. Imagine you are walking through a hospital and a patient suffering from a severe fever deliriously thrashes out and strikes you in the arm. Do you fly into a rage? Do you strike the sick patient back? Of course not. You understand that they are unwell. Their mind is clouded. You feel pity, not anger. Sympatheia demands that you apply this exact same grace to the psychological and moral illnesses of the people around you. When the internet troll leaves a venomous comment, when the co-worker takes credit for your work, they are acting out of a spiritual sickness, a deep insecurity and ignorance of true virtue. To change your mind forever, you must stop absorbing the poison of other people's actions. When you realize that the person hurting you is actually inflicting the greatest damage upon their own character, your anger dissolves into a powerful, untouchable empathy. You realize that you cannot be harmed by them, because true harm only comes to those who choose to act without virtue. By practicing sympatheia, you remain the healthy cell in the body of humanity, immune to the disease of malice. Lesson 6. Voluntary discomfort. Train for the worst. Let us travel now from the freezing military tents of Marcus Aurelius to the astonishing opulence of Rome during the reign of Emperor Nero. Here we find Lucius Annaeus Seneca. Seneca is not a soldier. He is a playwright, an advisor to the emperor, and the wealthiest private citizen in the Roman Empire. His estates stretch across Italy, his cellars are filled with the rarest wines, and his dining tables are made of citrus wood and ivory. By all accounts, Seneca is a man deeply entangled in the trap of luxury. Yet Seneca was also a master Stoic. He understood a terrifying psychological truth. Comfort is the worst kind of slavery. When you become accustomed to soft beds, rich food, and easy living, you become completely dependent on them. You live in constant, low-grade terror of losing your wealth. You become a hostage to your own lifestyle. To prevent this, Seneca practiced a radical technique known as praemeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, but he took it out of his mind and put it into physical action. Once a month, the richest man in Rome would order his servants to hide his expensive robes. He would strip down to a coarse, scratching peasant's tunic. He would leave his palatial bedroom and sleep on the cold, hard stone floor. For days, he would eat only the stalest, crustiest bread and drink only room-temperature water. Why would a billionaire choose to live like a beggar? Seneca explains it in a letter to his friend Lucilius. Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" This is the lesson of voluntary discomfort. Human anxiety is largely driven by the fear of the unknown. We stay in miserable jobs because we fear the poverty of unemployment. We refuse to take risks because we are terrified of losing our social standing. The monster hiding in the closet of our minds is the question, what if I lose it all? The Stoic does not run from this monster. The Stoic opens the closet, drags the monster into the light, and realizes it is just a shadow. By voluntarily subjecting himself to poverty, Seneca proved to his own nervous system that he did not need his wealth to survive, or even to be happy. When he was lying on the stone floor, eating stale bread, he realized he could still think, he could still write, he could still breathe. The worst-case scenario wasn't actually that bad, and the moment you realize the worst-case scenario is survivable, you become utterly fearless. In the modern world, comfort has become our default state. We live in climate-controlled homes, we have food delivered to our doors with the tap of a screen, and we avoid physical exertion at all costs. This relentless pursuit of comfort has made us incredibly fragile. A slow Wi-Fi connection or a slightly delayed flight is enough to trigger a nervous breakdown in the modern citizen. To forge an unbreakable mind, you must inject voluntary discomfort into your daily routine. Take a freezing cold shower for 3 minutes every morning. Fast for 24 hours to understand true hunger. Leave your smartphone at home for a weekend. Sleep on the floor for a night. When you purposefully step into discomfort, you are doing 2 things. First, you are resetting your baseline of gratitude. After a freezing cold shower, simply being dry and warm feels like a miracle. Second, you are building a reservoir of psychological armor. When real tragedy strikes, when the economy collapses, or when you actually face hardship, you will not panic. While everyone else is falling apart, you will stand firm, because you have already trained in the dark. We now enter the realm of perception. The final frontier of Stoicism is not just about enduring the world, but about fundamentally altering how we see and measure our existence within it. Our modern lives are defined by overwhelming noise. We are hyper-focused on the micro-dramas of our daily routines, the passive-aggressive email, the scratch on our new car, the wrinkles forming around our eyes. In Part 4, Stoicism offers the ultimate antidote to this suffocating myopia. Lesson 7. The view from above, macroscopic perspective. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a massive, crowded labyrinth. The walls are high, the pathways are narrow, and you are constantly bumping into dead ends. From this ground-level perspective, the labyrinth is terrifying, confusing, and intensely stressful. Every wrong turn feels like a catastrophe. Now, imagine you suddenly sprout wings. You fly 10 feet into the air, then 100 feet, then 1,000 feet. You look down. The massive, terrifying labyrinth now looks like a tiny, intricate puzzle drawn on a piece of paper. You can see the exit. You can see how small the walls really are. The labyrinth hasn't changed, but your perspective has. This cognitive shift is a core Stoic exercise known as the view from above. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling the known world, was constantly burdened by the sheer weight of his responsibilities. Wars, plagues, betrayals, and the endless bickering of the Senate could have easily crushed him. To maintain his sanity, he frequently engaged in a radical exercise of imagination. He would mentally zoom out. Think of substance in its entirety, of which you have the smallest of shares, and of time in its entirety, of which a brief and momentary span has been assigned to you, and of the works of destiny, and how very small is your part in them. Marcus Aurelius. He would picture the grand palaces of Rome, then zoom out to see the entire Italian peninsula. He would zoom out further to see the Mediterranean, the surrounding continents, and the vast, dark oceans. Then he would zoom out through time. He would imagine the countless empires that had risen and fallen before Rome, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, all of them believing they were the center of the universe, all of them now reduced to dust and ruins. He would imagine the infinite stretch of time that would continue long after his own death, when his name would be entirely forgotten. He did this to shrink his ego and to shrink his anxieties. When you are trapped in a bitter argument with your spouse over who should take out the trash, your brain processes this conflict as if it is the most important event in the universe. Your blood pressure spikes, cortisol floods your system, and you lose all sense of proportion. The Stoic cure for this localized madness is to take the view from above. The next time you find yourself gripped by anxiety over a presentation at work, or devastated by an embarrassing social faux pas, force your mind into the stratosphere. Picture your body sitting in its chair. Now visualize your city, teeming with millions of people, all fighting their own hidden battles, completely unaware of your existence. Visualize the earth, a tiny blue marble spinning in an infinite, silent vacuum. Consider that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, and your life is a microscopic flash of light that will last, at best, perhaps 80 or 90 years. This is not meant to induce nihilism. It does not mean your life doesn't matter. Quite the opposite. The view from above is deeply liberating. It strips away the suffocating pressure of perfectionism and ego. It reveals the absurdity of holding grudges, hoarding wealth, or obsessing over status. When you realize how small you are, your problems shrink with you. The heavy boulder of anxiety you have been carrying is suddenly revealed to be a grain of sand. The view from above grants you the ability to walk through life with a light heart, doing your best, but remaining utterly detached from the paralyzing weight of self-importance. Lesson 8. Guard your time, the ultimate currency. If the view from above teaches us how vast the universe is, our 8th lesson teaches us how painfully finite our own existence is. We return to Seneca, who authored what might be the most piercing critique of human behavior ever written, an essay titled De Brevitate Vitae, on the shortness of life. Imagine a wealthy Roman aristocrat walking through the Forum. If a thief ran up and tried to snatch his purse full of silver denarii, the aristocrat would fight to the death. He would call the guards, he would draw his dagger, he would risk his life to protect a few pieces of metal. Yet that exact same aristocrat would happily spend 3 hours listening to a flatterer stroke his ego, 4 hours attending a boring banquet to maintain appearances, and 5 hours watching gladiators fight in the arena, effectively giving away half his day to meaningless distractions. Seneca observed this madness and wrote, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." This is the lesson of guarding your time. Money can be lost and earned back. Property can burn down and be rebuilt. But time? Time is the only currency in the universe that is strictly non-refundable. Every hour that slips through your fingers is gone for eternity. The Stoics realized that we do not simply have a short life, we make it short by wasting it. If Seneca were alive today, he would be horrified by our modern world. He would see millions of people voluntarily handing over hours of their irreplaceable lives to glowing screens, doom-scrolling through the curated, fake lives of strangers. He would see us spending decades working jobs we despise to buy things we don't need, simply to impress people we don't even like. We act as if we have an infinite bank account of time. We say, "I will write that book when I retire. I will travel with my kids next summer. I will start taking care of my health on Monday." We push our actual living into an imaginary future, completely ignoring the fact that tomorrow is promised to absolutely no one. To change your mind forever, you must become ruthlessly protective of your time. You must learn the most powerful word in the Stoic vocabulary. No, I will not attend that meeting that could have been an email. No, I will not engage in that toxic gossip. No, I will not spend the next 2 hours arguing with a stranger in a comment section. No, I will not let an algorithm harvest my attention to sell advertisements. Guarding your time is not about being antisocial or selfish. It is about supreme intentionality. It is about realizing that your time is the raw material of your life. When you say yes to something trivial, you are actively saying no to something meaningful. You are paying for that mindless scrolling with the time you could have spent building a legacy, holding your children, or mastering a craft. The Stoic audits their time like a ruthless accountant. At the end of the day, they ask themselves, "Did I spend my time today, or was it stolen from me? Did I invest it in virtue, or did I burn it on distraction?" When you begin treating your hours as more precious than diamonds, the quality of your life skyrockets. You stop drifting through the days on autopilot and start actively piloting your fate. You realize that you have exactly enough time to live a deeply meaningful, impactful life, but only if you stop throwing it away. We have built the walls of our fortress, forged our armor, and learned to guard our time. But what is the purpose of this impenetrable mind? Why endure the discomfort? Why face our mortality? In this final part, we uncover the ultimate goal of Stoicism. It is not merely to survive life's storms, but to remain morally unbroken when the storm tries to strip away your soul. Lesson 9. Summum bonum. Virtue is the only good. In the dying days of the Roman Republic, the state was tearing itself apart. Julius Caesar had crossed the Rubicon, plunging Rome into a bloody civil war to seize absolute power. Opposing him was a man who terrified Caesar more than any army: Cato the Younger. Cato was a political leader and a radical Stoic. He was immune to bribery, untouched by flattery, and legendary for his ferocious integrity. When Caesar's forces finally cornered Cato in the North African city of Utica, Caesar planned to pardon him. Caesar wanted the public relations victory of showing mercy to his greatest rival. But Cato understood something that Caesar didn't. Cato knew that to accept Caesar's pardon was to legitimize a tyrant. It would mean compromising his principles to save his own skin. So, rather than live comfortably under the rule of a dictator, Cato calmly retreated to his quarters, read Plato's treatise on the immortality of the soul, and took his own life. Cato's dramatic end perfectly encapsulates the core tenet of Stoicism, summum bonum, or the highest good. To the Stoics, there is only one true good in the world: virtue. Everything else, money, health, reputation, power, and even life itself, is considered an indifferent. Having $1 billion does not make you a good person. Being utterly destitute does not make you a bad one. These external things are neutral tools. It is how you use them that defines your character. The Stoics defined virtue through 4 pillars. 1. Wisdom, the ability to navigate complex situations logically and calmly without being blinded by emotion. 2. Courage, the strength to do what is right, especially when it terrifies you or costs you dearly. 3. Justice, the commitment to treating others with absolute fairness and acting for the greater good of humanity. 4. Temperance, the power of self-discipline, moderation, and control over your own desires. When you make summum bonum the anchor of your life, you become truly unshakable. If your goal is to be wealthy, a stock market crash can destroy you. If your goal is to be famous, a single rumor can ruin you. But if your only goal is to be virtuous, to act with courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance, then no one can ever take that away from you. The economy cannot crash your character. A tyrant cannot imprison your integrity. You hold the keys to your own ultimate worth. Lesson 10. The Daily Review, the Inner Citadel. Philosophy is not a book you read once and put on a shelf. It is not a fleeting burst of motivation you feel after watching a video. To change your mind forever, Stoicism must become a daily hygiene, as essential as brushing your teeth. This brings us to our final lesson, practiced diligently by Seneca in the quiet hours of the night. Seneca wrote about his evening routine with profound clarity. When the day was over, when the noise of the city had faded and his wife had gone to sleep, he would sit alone in the darkness and interrogate his own soul. I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by. Seneca. This is the practice of the daily review. Every night, before you close your eyes, you must hold a court of law in your own mind. You are the judge, and you are the defendant. You ask yourself 3 brutal but necessary questions. 1. What did I do wrong today? Did I lose my temper at the barista? Did I waste 2 hours mindlessly scrolling? Did I act out of ego? 2. What did I do right today? Did I handle a stressful email with grace? Did I practice voluntary discomfort? Did I show courage? 3. What duty remains undone? What must I carry forward to tomorrow to be a better human being? By reviewing your day without judgment, but with objective clarity, You build what Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel. You patch the cracks in your fortress walls. You ensure that the mistakes of yesterday do not become the blind habits of tomorrow. Stoicism is not about perfection. You will fail. You will get angry. You will lose your perspective. But the daily review guarantees that you will never stay lost. Every sunrise becomes a fresh canvas, a new opportunity to practice the art of living. True freedom isn't found in a perfect life. It's forged in an unbreakable mind. By focusing on what you control, loving your fate, guarding your time, and choosing virtue above all else, you become a force of nature. If these 10 Stoic lessons shifted your perspective, hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more ancient wisdom applied to modern life. Stay Stoic.